Hello gamers. Right, I decided to do an actual Elden Ring Nightreign playthrough run rather than me just yap about, whatever aspects of the game is going on right now. So this is my first everdark Fulghor run. We first tried him, no deaths, so that was pretty cool. I wasn't, I was very surprised about doing that myself. But yeah, so I'm just going to run through the actual process of how I got there, and obviously I'm going to cut out all the boring bits and just get to the good fights and stuff like that. So for me, it's the same process with pretty much every character that I do. It's land, do the first camp, get that first level, pick a, camp or something like that, depending on who you're running, get a couple of levels up from one of the bosses, and then go and get your first flask. And honestly, with Ironeye, you don't even really need to be up in your flask because his movement and his skill that obviously has the iframes when you get to +2 of them when you have the certain relic on, that you're not going to be getting hit that much anyway because Ironeye is just that OP. But yeah, that's always my first process. Now, it's very rare that I get a first camp that has actually pretty decent loot. So the RNG was really good on this one, as you'll see on the bow that we pick up, I believe it's now. Sorry, the crossbow. So we got the +7 attack at full HP. You're going to be full HP a lot, and then you've got the projectile drop-off, which is obviously really useful for Ironeye with his bow. So drop-in spawn out the way, and then we're off to the first camp. Of course, we get to the camp, and it's the Banished Knights, which is probably the most annoying one to fight for me. For some reason, I just really struggle against these Banished Knights. As you can see there, I mean, I've tried to use the ult to get, his skill to get through the Banished Knight, and I've just got hit with one of his follow-ups. Here, I've tried to run, I'm panicking to get out of the way, and I've run into a corner. And I can't even lock on straight here, so yeah. As you can see, I'm struggling a bit with the Banished Knights, but, we get through it. Now, because we're a little bit squishy, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to lure one of them to me so I can still fight one at a time, basically. But yeah, eventually it works and one of them comes towards me. Has to be the one with the shield, of course it does, which is going to be the most difficult out of the two. In the end, the circle started closing in, so I just decided to hit him with a nuke so I can move on to the next one. So this one took actually longer than expected. The circle was closing in. I need to get a bit of a move on, really. Now, we took the improved stance breaking because obviously the other two weren't really, beneficial for Ironeye. So we got the loot. We actually got another projectile range drop-off, which is obviously going to be really good. And yeah, we've got a couple of levels and we're moving on. Now, at this point, the hairs on my butt were twitching because obviously I'm really low level, really low health. And I didn't really want to get caught in the fire to lose my runes and the level that we just worked so hard to get. So we got the flask and then we moved on. Here, we're just actually deciding what route to take. Now, obviously, I want to get the +2 for my weapon. Although, thinking back about it, I was going to always get a legendary, so we probably didn't even need to get the +2. We could have just went straight to the crater. But I noticed that Libra was in the bottom left-hand corner. Libra is always a good idea, especially for someone like Ironeye, because if you can have the gradual health one, which gives you the runes, you're not really going to lose any health anyway, because you're always going to be far away from your opponent. So yeah, Libra is always a good idea when you're doing a Ironeye run. Honestly, Libra's a good idea for most of the runs, all depending on what he gives. Now, I decided, even though we're fighting against the clock, just to take these guys out. I took this guy out so I could just quickly build up my ult so I could go to the boss here and just basically one-tap everyone. But yeah, as usual, one of them survived. Well, two of them survived technically, so we took out the big guy, then we took out the other big guy quickly. And as you can see here, the fire actually stops right where we are, which was really lucky. Even though we probably would have still been able to take him out and get the boss reward. And also get the runes and everything and not be in any trouble anyway. So yeah, we took the loot, which if I remember correctly was a pretty good one. It was the, affinity attack power +5, which is obviously always going to be good. Especially when we're trying to use the lightning for Fulghor. Now I opened this chest and there was a shield. But if you look on the shield, it had a +24 critical. Which you're going to get a lot of criticals with Ironeye. So I thought, yeah, definitely going to take that and we're going to use it, make use of that. Now, that last boss fight gave us enough runes to get another level, so we're at level 6, which honestly we're kind of behind, really. Normally, at this point, you want to be at, like, level 7, level 8, especially for someone like Ironeye, because you can take everyone out fairly quickly without, being pressured. But yeah, level 6, not bad, we're moving on. Now, here we kind of changed the game plan up a little bit. Obviously, we were supposed to go and get Libra, because that's really the goal at this, at this point here. But I realised there was a church right next to me, and I thought, you know what? Why not go and get another flask? Turns out it was almost a bad move. So we got to Libra, I was getting ready to rub my hands with all the runes we were going to get, and of course, it was 3 mediocre rewards. Now obviously we looked at the eventual greatness one, but then I thought to myself, you know what, the church is right there, let's just go and get another flask. We ain't got time really to even think about what we need to do for it. But obviously, my ADHD brain decided not to go and get the flask because we don't need it. And then as I ran past Libra, I grew some balls and I thought, you know what, we're going to take the eventual greatness one. So as we dropped down, we actually heard the Tear Scarab. I decided to go and check what it is to see if it would be useful. Turns out it was a really good decision because it was a plus 20% Holy Negation. Now, whilst doing that, I thought to myself, you know what, there's another tier scarab up there, we still got time. Let's go and have a look what the other tier scarab was. Holy RNG, Miyazaki has finally decided to give me some pretty decent RNG. Now, the Smithing Stone 2 that we picked up earlier, I decided to go and put it to use and upgrade Ironeye's bow. Obviously, a stronger bow is always going to be beneficial, especially for the first Night Lord, and we're still fairly low level. So really, it was just in case we got like an annoying boss like Freya or something like that, just to be able to put more damage output. So it turns out we got the Knights Cavalry, which isn't the worst in the world. It's not the best for me. I find them both difficult to play against when you're playing solo, because obviously, as you see there, you look away for 1 second and you get bonked with a flail. Now, we took the eventual greatness, which means we've got really low health and really low stamina. So obviously, we're just being a bit careful here, or at least we're trying to be a bit careful. Now, this is always good when one of them stops attacking you. I don't know whether this is supposed to happen in the game, but it's obviously really beneficial when you're playing solo. But yeah, both of the Night Cavalry guys were fairly easy, and honestly, it didn't take us that long at all. Which was really good, because we eventually got the buff from Libra. Now, I honestly don't think I've ever had a good boss drop from the first Night Lord. We ended up taking the HP Restoration one just because we're going to be doing successive attacks, so why not? So I decided we're at the castle, we might as well go and see what the basement boss is. Turns out it was the Grafted Scion, which is fairly easy for Ironeye. So we got to the Grafted Scion, we took the Grafted Scion out, and then Miyazaki decided to give us the worst RNG known to man. Why are you giving me an Erdtree Seal, Miyazaki, when I am playing Ironeye? So we grabbed the Blood Loss at low HP, we got to the Crucible Knight, my hands decided they didn't want to work anymore, I just got arthritis in this instant, so I couldn't roll. We opened the chest, and the talismans were actually pretty good, but unfortunately the talisman slots we already had were just better overall. So Crucible noob down, some extra runes for another level. We decided to open the chest that was next to us, because the actual chest next to us gave us a pretty good drop. An extra 12% holy damage negation is always going to be useful against Fulghor, so yeah. We then decided to take out this Crucible Knight for some extra runes, and at this point we really did need to go to the crater, otherwise we weren't going to have enough time. First fire prelate down, if I remember correctly, the RNG was pretty bad, but it did have a 10% plus rune, so we decided to take that, because we was still fairly low level. The next grace, we managed to get up to level 11, and then we took out the next fire prelate, which this RNG for this was pretty good actually. It was, yep, plus 12 damage negation, which is obviously going to work well for Fulghor. Then we got to the 3 fire prelates here, which actually took longer than it needed to. In the end, we took them down, and we actually got a legendary drop, which my eyes lit up until I realised it wasn't legendary for Ironeye. As usual, Miyazaki gave us the worst stuff known to man. None of it which actually even helped remotely a little bit. So yeah, we took the increase to maximum FP and we moved on. Now, we only had the hands to run past, but I couldn't be bothered to get caught by one of them, so I just tried to save a little bit of time. And we actually did like a mini skip here. If you didn't know, if you're using Ironeye, you can actually skip the whole crater shifting event right to the bottom to get yourself the legendary weapon. Obviously, you still have to fight the Magma Wyrm, but with Ironeye, Magma Wyrm's pretty easy. Now, I'm not utilising it well here, but what you should be doing when you're fighting big bosses like this is using Ironeye's R2. Now, you can actually charge and you can actually feint the R2 if you didn't know. How useful they are, I'm not really sure, and how much more damage the charge does, I'm not really sure, because, you know, the charge R2 takes a long time anyway. Sorry, the R2 takes a long time anyway. So, but if you get close to a big boss like the Hiss and you're using the R2, you actually do essentially triple the damage, because it's not just one arrow hitting, it's 3. So Magma Wyrm down, they gave us a pretty good drop here. They actually gave us the pulley bow, which we could have made a legendary, or we had the sudden death attacking. I decided I didn't need the pulley bow because we was about to make the lightning bow legendary, which is going to be more useful in the end anyway. We wasn't going to take any of the drops, but in the end we decided to take the sudden death one, even though we probably weren't going to use it by this point. We're already at the last boss of night 2, so it was kind of pointless really. Here, my ADHD brain kicked in again, and I decided to go and get an extra flask, because why not? Just in case we needed it. So we grabbed the flask. We also brought a Wending Grace in case we died. And then we made our way to the final boss after taking out the Demi-Human Queen, just for the Grace and some extra runes, really. This drop was actually really good. It gave us another +5 attack power, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're getting like 2 or 3 of them and you're getting like an extra 10-15% on your attack power, it does add up, especially with someone like Ironeye. Now, we decided to set the wolves out at the top just for the extra runes, because we was literally really close to another level. And then we moved on to the final bosses of the night. Now, this pair is going to be fairly easy. I decided to just take them out, just blast them. I got in there, just started blasting.
I
Took
started
out the
blasting.
one
Bang,
beast
bang.
man, and then we took out the dragon, which was pretty quick. And then we moved on to one of my favourite bosses of all time, Nameless King. Now, I always get a little bit worried about Nameless King. For some reason, I don't know whether it's an old panic thing that sets in, because a little bit of early nerf lore. Nameless King was probably the most difficult boss for me ever. It took me the most tries. I can't even remember. I probably can remember. I'm just embarrassed to say how many tries Nameless King took me on my first play. Unfortunately, in Elden Ring Nightreign, they have nerfed his ass to the ground. So he is really simple, if you just obviously don't panic roll. Now, with someone like Ironeye, because you're low health and stuff like that, you obviously do get 2-shot. As you can see here, I've tried to get a bit greedy, and I'm almost, well, I guess I'm 3-shot with all the extra buffs that I've got. But yeah, Nameless King went down fairly quick, and he was pretty easy compared to what he was in Dark Souls 3. So I think they should give us an enhanced version for the next patch of the Nameless King. At this point, I've clearly just got arthritis again because I'm not rolling any of his attacks. I'm just tanking them. Nah, I'd tank that. Oh, how they've done our boy, the Nameless King, dirty. Anyway, Nameless King down. The boss rewards were actually really good. I was stuck between getting the plus 15% health or the periodical glint blades. Overall, we already had quite decent health from the buff we got from Libra, so we took the glint blades. Quick look at all the buffs that we've got from the actual run. It was actually a god tier run, if I do say so myself. Brought another Wending Grace, and on to Fulghor. Fulghor for me actually feels like the toughest boss out of them all. It's the one I've struggled with mostly when I've been fighting him, and it's mostly this second phase that I've always struggled with. It probably didn't help that I haven't actually fought Fulghor for a while, mostly because I've been avoiding him, so I was unfamiliar with a lot of his moveset, so I got caught a lot. Good job we had all of those damage negation buffs. Now, the one thing I will say about the Fulghor fight is these yellow, the holy beams that you get from the ground. I think they're such a bad design. I don't think I've ever rolled a single one of them. I mean, they might not be a bad design. Maybe it's just me and I don't really know what I'm doing or how I need to roll them. But yeah, it feels like they're, for the most part, unrollable. Now, Fulghor actually does the zoomies here, and because I play a lot of PvP, I tend to lock off the enemies quite a lot, so I actually lost track of him. And as you can see, the bum hairs are actually twitching because I don't know where he's going or where he's coming from. But we survived anyway. Now, this is just a little bit of an interjection to show you how goated the R2 of Ironeye actually is. You see there, the critical did about 1,000 damage. Now, if you look at these 3 R2s that we did, where all 3 of them hit, it actually did roughly the same damage. So that's why sometimes it's a good idea to stay close with Ironeye and actually utilise the R2 a lot. Now, we actually picked a really unfortunate time to use our ult here. He entered one of his new moves, and I believe when he's in this mode, he can't actually be stance broken. So this bit was actually really unfortunate. Although, though, look how beautiful, look how cool the new moveset is. It's pretty cool. From Software have cooked with this. This is just a prime example of why you always choose the glint blades, because they're so powerful, especially for poise breaking your enemies and guard breaking them, because that was just such a clutch moment there. Here I actually paused because I wanted to get like a pretty cool way to end him. But in the end, I thought to myself, you know what, let's just not risk it. We're deathless. Let's finish the run deathless. And yeah, as you can see, we just used his skill to finish it. But yeah, Fulghor, absolutely incredible. From Software have cooked with that boss. So gamers, if you've made it this far, as always, I really appreciate your time, because I know time is very important. And if you're spending 10, 15 minutes, even 5 minutes watching one of my videos, I really do appreciate it. It's actually incredible to know that people around the world are watching my videos. You know, obviously I never really make these types of videos, even though that I started out as a gaming channel. I like to yap a lot. So if you've got any advice for this kind of video, if this kind of format is something that you like, let me know in the comments. Also, drop a like, a comment, subscribe. That stuff really helps the channel. And as always, I will catch you on the next one. Big love, stay safe, peace.